Hi everyone, welcome back to Coffee, Books, and Rain. I'm Rachel with my coffee, with my books and my reviews, and no rain, but we have some really crazy wind because I think tonight we have a freeze warning. It was like the high of maybe 55 today, and it's about to drop like a bunch in the next like couple of hours. I am wearing my Bowsette headband. A friend of mine actually made the crown and the horns, so I attached it to a headband that I already had and just thought I would go ahead and rock it for you guys since he did such an amazing job. I don't plan on wearing the full Bowsette costume on camera, but you never know with me. There is always some potential. But we are diving into some books that I actually already read and reviewed, and that's just the bad thing, is that I recorded 3 episodes yesterday and then did not. I thought I looked awful. So I was being critical of myself. I had just gotten done doing a whole bunch of moving and such, like moving things around, hanging lights, all that sort of stuff, and realized once I started editing, after I had recorded 3 solid episodes, that I didn't like them. So we are doing them again, and we're starting with Stormfront by Jim Butcher. And I know you're probably like, wait a minute, that book's been out forever. Yes, it has. It has been out forever, and this is my well-thumbed copy with like half the part of the book it's missing and separating from the spine. There's probably like an old not a Barnes and Noble, Books a Million, like receipt somewhere tucked inside. But I definitely bought this thing forever long ago. And why would I review it now? Well, because NetGalley had available a full dramatization of this book. And I don't know if any of y'all really remember. I know I do. But I want to say like maybe I say late 90s, early 2000s, but that's wrong because, of course, this book came out in 2000. So it had to be mid to early 2000, the 2010s or something like that. Anyway, there was a TV show on Sci-Fi for the Dresden Files. Didn't do great because I think they just took too many liberties away from the book of what people were expecting. Like they started off right off the bat, episode 1 of just kind of taking a lot of liberties that I think some of the fans were probably looking for. And so, I mean, even when it comes down to his really beat up VW Beetle, I think the main character of the TV show had some sort of Jeep. And I mean, that's fine and all, but we're like, the Beetle is a whole character in itself because of how unreliable it can be and how many different shades of color it is due to having been patched. Well, Stormfront by Jim Butcher, this is the first book of the Dresden Files. Again, if you don't know about the Dresden Files, you are missing a really great urban fantasy series, in my personal opinion. It is one of the urban fantasy series that probably really launched me hardcore into just liking the genre of urban fantasy. From here, I think I went with Simon R. Green and the Nightside series, and then I went to who else did I go to at that particular time? Kevin Hearn and his Iron Druid series. So there's quite a few out there that you are welcome to go out and find. This one is just really good in my personal opinion. Lost items found, paranormal investigations, consulting, advice, reasonable rates, no love potions, endless purses, or other entertainment. Harry Dresden is the best at what he does. Well, technically, he's the only at what he does. So when the Chicago PD has a case that transcends mortal creativity or capacity, capability, not capacity, both words, they come to him for answers. For the everyday world is actually full of strange and magical things, and most don't play well with humans. That's where Harry comes in. Take a wizard to catch whatever. There's just one problem. Business, to put it mildly, stinks. So when the police bring him in to consult on a grisly double murder committed with black magic, Harry's seeing dollar signs. But where there's black magic, there's a black mage behind it. And now that mage knows Harry's name, and that's when things start to get interesting. Magic, it can get a guy killed. My coffee's still hot, so I want to try to get some of it down before it starts to cool off as I write these as I do these reviews. Now, this particular book is approximately, it says 372 in mass market paperback. I'm going to tell you, I feel 100% confident this is a mass market paperback, and it's 322. I already looked because I recorded this episode yesterday. But I don't think whatever 50 pages that are kind of disputing between this, that, and the other, is really that big of deal. Now, the funny thing is it first published April 1st of 2000. I was, about a month and a half from graduating high school. This came out when I was a senior in high school. Wow. But ever since I picked it up, which was probably the mid 2000s, I have really enjoyed it. Now, again, this book is the first one, so it is kind of a level-setting book. It is fun, it is whimsical, it's kind of silly in some ways, but it's got a little bit of grittiness as well, because we have monsters and demons and such that tend to run a little rampant in Chicago. Now, another thing that you all may know about me at this particular point is that I like reading books set in Chicago. I lived there, so when they talk about various things and places and such, I'm able to get a really good idea of just how the action is moving throughout the city. And so, going back to the summary, there's one thing that I thought was kind of funny, was that in the summary, it says no love potions. Well, he has a, let's just say, air spirit companion who is kind of like his talking internet for wizard things. Now, technology does not work well around Harry, so his hot water heater's constantly broken, and that's why telephones kind of squeal and screech. I would assume very much like AT&T dial-up back when we had that sort of dial-up thing going on. But one of his things is that he says no love potions. Well, this particular air spirit that's trapped in a skull, his name is Bob. And Bob, again, is like a talking encyclopedic knowledge of wizard things. So at one point in the book, Harry goes to Bob and he's like, hey, I want to make a potion, like an escape potion. And Bob's like, well, if you're making one, you might as well make two. So Harry's like, okay, fine. And so Bob wants to make a love potion. So I just thought it was really funny because even though the summary specifically says no love potions, one of the very first things that he does is make a love potion. He reasonable rates. He's about $50 an hour. That's a pretty good rate. I think that's more than what I make right now, which, I'm not making anything right now. I am a government worker who is not getting paid. But I also think it's very interesting that it says that Harry is the only at what he does. And all I can imagine, because this is definitely a world where magic abounds, and it's definitely crawling between the cracks of the sidewalks of Chicago, and there are more wizards than just Harry. But what I assume this means is that Harry is the only one that can be found in the Yellow Pages, kind of hawking his wares, so to speak, or hawking his service, I guess I should say. Now, mentioning Yellow Pages, that is one thing that probably has not been brought forward too well in time, is that there are a couple things in this book that do feel dated simply because, we don't have Yellow Pages anymore. Not really. They don't get dropped off at your door and look like a book like this of just everybody's phone number who's listed. We also don't have as many payphones. So there's a couple moments in the book where Harry actually uses a payphone to call people because cell phones were really not a thing. Now, my assumption too is that Harry would do terribly in today's modern society, especially if technology does not work well around him. So all of the things that we have now, from computers to tablets to phones to just smart cars, smart fridges, all of that, just he's not going to do well as technology advances. So I have probably not read like the past 2 or 3 books, and that's just by accident because I actually think I thought it ended after I'm looking on my shelf kind of beyond the screen. About book 15 perhaps. But apparently books 18 and 19 are coming out in 26 and 27 respectively. And so that tells me that I still have a couple books left to catch up on when it comes to the Dresden Files. I will say some of them get a little bit darker and grittier and more intense as the series progresses. But I really love like the first couple of books in the series that are just kind of fun, slightly campy, lots of great urban fantasy, a little bit of humor, wit, sass, all those sorts of things that really make it just an enjoyable, and I don't want to say lighthearted read, especially when we have a double murder where people's hearts exploded out of their chest. But I'm not saying that it's not gritty. I'm just saying that it just feels more lighthearted than some of the ones in the future. Now, I will say at least one of the books in the future has a necromancer, riding a T-Rex into battle, which is great. The whole imagery is wonderful because if you know anything about Chicago, there's the Field Museum. I think the Field Museum now has Sue and another dinosaur. But anyway, this particular necromancer rides Sue into battle. And so that's just a really cool image in my personal opinion. But he does get called in on this particular case. He has a friend, I guess you could say, on the force. But man, I had forgotten how just absolutely just abrasive Murphy is. So she is part of Chicago Police Department, and she is part of their like supernatural crimes unit. And so they're constantly getting kind of like poo-pooed on by their counterparts, but she's really trying to do a good job. And she's very much a person who's like all about business. So when Harry comes in, he's kind of got a little swagger in his step because he's kind of pretty much a confident sort of asshole sort of guy. I forgot just how rude I guess she was. There's a couple points where like he won't tell her everything about something about some certain type of black magic, and he's kind of under restrictions in the magic realm to not do and investigate certain things or dabble in certain things because he himself has accidentally, and I do say accidentally, has accidentally done something in the past that has now put a target on his head that if he should ever step a toe out of line, he will then be pretty much offed. And so Murphy doesn't know that, but she is asking him to investigate this double murder, which seems to have been done by black magic, and she wants to know how and why and all these answers that he's really hesitant to try to answer for her. Now, he also enjoys finding loopholes in what he can and can't do. So he's gonna get some answers. It's just gonna be kind of funny or fun or silly about the way he goes about getting it. Just trying to think. Now, on top of helping the Chicago Police Department, she's not a widow, but she is a wife whose husband is missing, and she asks Dresden, she like plunks down some money. She's like, hey, here, does this help to like make a deposit for, looking for my husband? And he's like, yeah, great. Okay. And so he can go pay his bills for like this particular week. Well, then there's a guy named Johnny Marcone or is it Tommy? I think it's Tommy. well, Marcone. Marcone is pretty much the big baddie. And not big baddie in the way that he did it, but he's like the mafia boss that kind of rules over most of Chicago right now. Now, we do encounter some vampires in this particular book. I want to say it's Red Court. Now, there are Black and White Court as well in the vampire world, but I don't think we run across them this time. There is the kind of the wizards council. We get a glimpse a little bit into at least one person from that council, and we also get a couple of more fun side characters like Toot Toot, who is a little fairy, and we do also get Bob as well. We get Susan, who is a reporter, and yeah, so these are some pretty important characters that come along with pretty much Dresden's life. He is just a really fun character in my personal perspective. And I do recommend this series when someone's looking for something that is a bit of an urban fantasy that kind of like he's a modern day wizard in Chicago. It's kind of hard to be super, super serious because then it just, I don't think would work very well. He's wisecracking. He's kind of like this person said, he's self deprecating. And he really doesn't know how to shut his mouth or take his foot out of his mouth. He really loves to say the wrong thing at the wrong time. And so, yeah, he will get beat up. He will not always come out pretty as a picture on the other side. But are there 18 or 19 books? Yes. So he's probably going to survive. It's just going to be by the skin of his teeth on most occasions. And so for the first book of the series, I thought it was great to get back into this world. I love, for me, the nostalgia of it. But if you are looking for an urban fantasy that could potentially, you could go find now a full dramatization cast of, like the cast of audiobook, then this is definitely one that I might recommend for you. It was done really well. Now, my one thought is there were a couple of sound effects or musical interludes that felt out of place. And I kept thinking, like, why is that playing here? And I would take off my headphone to make sure it wasn't coming externally rather than in the audiobook. But yeah, there were a couple moments where some of the, I don't know, musical interlude kind of moments didn't make a lot of sense. Or there was one moment too where there was a ringing phone that I just was like, okay, 2 rings is enough to give me, don't let it ring like 5 times because that just drives me wild. But with all of that being said, I do hope you will give Jim Butcher and his Stormfront book a chance. So, like I said, I've had this book forever. It is absolutely falling apart. And I still recommend it to anybody. Now, I probably don't lend this out just simply because I can't guarantee. Yeah, well, it goes from 40 to 41. So, I mean, all of it's here. It's just, it's just hanging on by a thread at this point. But I want to thank you all so much for tuning in. If you haven't liked and subscribed, I hope you will consider it. And I will see you all on the next page. Have a great one. Bye.